Hey, 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 it's Monday. I'm back. So that's 4 weeks in a row. Quite proud of myself there, actually. I thought I'd probably give up a bit sooner than this, so that's all right. I mentioned yesterday in a post for anyone who was following that today we would be coming on and doing another live because we are 4 weeks in and Monday night lives. And today I wanted to talk about a book that I've started listening to. I don't actually get a chance to read much anymore, but we're back to where there's a will, there's a way. And obviously Audible now exists and you can download books and stuff like that. So I have quite a few parenting books that I actually have in hard copy where I actually get to, hi Jess, how you going, buddy? Where I actually get to actually physically read a book. But a lot of the time, any reading that I do, any catching up on news or anything like that, it all happens audibly. So I either hear it in the car or I get it through my headphones and sort of listen when I'm doing various other things, because obviously we're out and about a lot and doing lots of different things. So often at the gym or if I'm walking up the 1,000 steps or whatever, I might be listening to a book on the way. And the book that I've been listening to at the moment is called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, although obviously there's a lot of stars in the actual title. And it's done by a man called Mark Manson. And his view on personal development is really quite interesting. And it kind of matches with a lot of what I've been doing. So, Jess, I don't know if you've read the book. If you have, let me know. Stick your comment in if you've got any questions or observations or your thoughts on the book. Obviously, I'd love to hear them if you want to jump on and say anything. Hi, Silvana. How are you, honey? We were just saying if anyone's actually read the book that I was talking about, feel free to stick your hand up and I'll bring it on. We can talk about what you thought or what you found interesting when you read it. I think the interesting thing for me was I do come back to this blame culture thing that we're in at the moment. And I think blame really sort of directs the way people behave and respond to stuff that happens these days. And I was just I actually had a conversation with hubby earlier and I sort of said to him, I don't know at what age you lose the ability to move on. But I know when you're a kid, I don't know if anyone else has got siblings. You might be an only child, you might not really know. But I have two sisters. And obviously, we get on most of the time, but we would argue, we'd fight. Even if it was just what we were watching on the telly or whatever, there would be a bit of a debate or an argument. You go to bed, you get up the next day, all was fine. You've moved on. And it's not that you've forgotten or that you've forgiven or anything. It's just that you've moved on. You've got other stuff to go on. And today's a new day and we do something else and we move on. And I think we do that really, really well as kids. And yet, as we grow up, we tend to lose that ability and we don't tend to do that so much. I mean, it's meant to be a maturing thing and it's a self-preservation thing and it's a learning thing and, all those kinds of things. I kind of think maybe it doesn't do us any favours. I think maybe the ability to move on, if you can retain it, is really useful in terms of, people talk about children's, what do they call it? Oh, brain freeze, having a day. The ability for them to respond well to setbacks and stuff like that. And I just think sometimes that would be good if we just moved on. I think the focus on fault is an issue as well now. People do, something happened, it was so-and-so's fault. Or such and such was in the wrong, or I was right and they were wrong, and therefore I have to get angry about that or feel bad about that. Or, if something happens to you, I broke my back when I was 12. And I say I broke it. Obviously, there was an accident. There were other people involved. It was just one of those things. People did say to me, are you angry about that? No, there was no one to blame. It wasn't anyone's fault. It was an accident. And I think very rarely these days does anyone ever talk about anything being an accident. There's usually somebody somewhere at fault. And a lot of that is the legal profession and the making money. But also I just think as a society as a whole, we've sort of moved away from that stuff just happens to someone caused that or someone did that and it's somebody's fault. And I think the problem is when you're looking at who's to blame, you're sort of feeling sorry for yourself and you're kind of getting angry and you get sort of resentful or you need to prove that person was wrong or that something was bad or whatever else. And I think what this book does really, really well is it talks about something that I've always tried to do, but I never really sort of sat down and thought why I do or what it's good for. So I genuinely don't believe in holding a grudge. I think if you hold a grudge, the only person that you're hurting there really is yourself. Whoever it is that has wronged you or upset you in your past or whatever else, if you're holding on to that, that person has moved on ages ago. They're not in your life. They're not there. They don't know that they're upsetting you or that it's a problem. The only person being affected by any grudge that you might be holding would be yourself. because you're carrying that grudge, you're carrying that emotion, you're carrying that feeling. And I don't think that's healthy. So I've always tried to move on, to get things going. Hi, Sarah, how are you? We're sort of talking a little bit about a book that I've been reading called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F-U-C-K. It's a self-development book, and it talks a little bit about, blame, basically, and the difference between fault and responsibility. So the interesting thing that he said, which I thought was good, was that I've got to so far, because I haven't fully finished the book, but it is very good. The first few chapters, you do have to it's a bit like when you watch Billy Connolly do a comedy skit. You kind of have to glance over the swear words. There's a lot of unnecessary swearing in the first 3 chapters. I don't know if you get immune to it or if it does genuinely whittle down, but I haven't noticed as much in the current chapters. So there you go. But yeah, sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought there. So what he was saying was, things happen and they may be somebody else's fault. But if you focus on the fault of how you got somewhere or what caused an event, you're not going to focus on what you really need to do, which is whose responsibility it is to move forward. So things can happen to you. People can do stuff to you and it's horrible. Like, it's absolutely horrible. But it is your responsibility about how you deal with that, how you respond to that, and how you move forward from that, and how long you let something affect you. So it could be somebody else's fault that you're in a current situation, but it is your responsibility to manage the situation that you're in and to move on. And I think often to do that, the thing that you need really is acceptance. Hi, Chris. How are you? Hope your week's going better. So getting to acceptance on a stage where something is not quite what you wanted or it feels like it's out of your control is a way of you taking control back. So you can't change what's happened. You can't change where you're at. But a bit like, there's a quote, I think it was C.S. Lewis actually said, you cannot go back and change the beginning, but you can rewrite the ending. You can start from here and you can rewrite the ending. So when something happens to you and it's not your fault and it's completely external, it's outside of your control, you have choices. And the choices that you have are how long you're going to let that affect you, how much of your day it's going to ruin, or your week or your year or whatever, but also how you're going to move forward from the point that you're in now and what you're going to do to effectively make the most of the situation that you've got. And I think for some of that, you do have to get to that level of acceptance quite quickly. And I think people don't get to acceptance because they're too busy blaming or saying, oh, but it wasn't my fault, or this happened to me and it couldn't be helped. Well, maybe that couldn't, but what happens next can be. And yeah, it's about taking responsibility for yourself and your future and what you want out of life. So yeah, I think the learning from the book is very different depending on who you are and what you're reading into it. For me, it related a lot to just, problem solving and addressing problems and feeling sorry for yourself or not feeling sorry for yourself. And I think people make a lot of mistakes, or not mistakes, but sort of misjudgments on what they have to do in order to do something right or well. And I think this pressure of being right or wrong as opposed to just having an opinion. Like, an opinion is not right or wrong, it's an opinion. It's not a fact. Facts can be right or wrong. Opinions are just opinions, and feelings are just feelings, and none of those are ever right or wrong. This is something that we talk about a lot in our house now, which we never used to talk about at all, which was that even if a feeling doesn't make sense, it's not wrong. Like, your feelings are okay. Recognizing your feelings is okay. You need to acknowledge your feelings. You need to label your feelings and accept your feelings, because then you can move on from them. Then you can say, okay, this is how I feel, but you can then become an observer of that feeling. And you can say, yeah, but does it need to affect me for the whole day? Or can I do something different? Can I turn it around? Can I make this feeling different? Can I, for want of a better word, I tend to logic out of my own feelings, to be honest. And sometimes I feel like, I noticed my little one did this as well. He actually understood totally that he shouldn't feel jealous about something, because he knew that it was, if you want, not irrational, but he knew that it didn't make sense for him to be jealous, because he knew that he was, but he still felt jealous anyway. Interestingly, because he still felt jealous, even though he tried not to and he tried not to behave, whatever, he actually felt guilty for feeling jealous because he thought he shouldn't feel jealous, which is it's a very bizarre process. So we've had to have this conversation with him that says, do you know what, it's okay to feel jealous and it's okay to feel bad. It's all about not acting on it, not taking that to where it needs to be. Fact and opinion. I'm big on that one. Yeah, I hear you, Sue. It's so hard, isn't it? And it is something the world needs to brush up on. I mean, not just that, but difference. I was talking to someone the other day. I'm an extremely literal person, obviously. And the word difference to me means different. But I think in society today, it's very difficult to be different without somebody labeling you as either right or wrong, or thinking that by being different, you are either right or wrong. And I think one of my mentors at work, Kira Westwick, bless her, she's got this thing with chocolate. She loves chocolate. And she likes to equate stuff back to chocolate. And that's never a bad thing. And she actually said something like, if I like chocolate, but you don't like chocolate, does that mean you're wrong? Or that I'm right? Or is it just different? And I think in relation to taste buds, we just accept that it's different. But in so many other things, we don't just accept different. We see it as some sort of judgment. Or if I'm doing something differently to you, people see that as a judgment on the way they're doing it, or as though I'm suggesting that any other way would be wrong or right. And I find that a really interesting response, but equally it's a very human response. So we do have that conversation about fact and opinion. We do have that conversation about right and wrong and different, and the fact that different is okay and different can exist. I mean, I remember reading somewhere, someone was talking about some research they were doing. Hi, Jazzy. How you going, mate? And they were talking about in the research, when they did the tests and stuff, they would come up with insignificant data or data that would say, like, it depends. If someone asks the question, the answer can genuinely be, it depends. But a lot of the time, people want certainty. They want to say, no, it doesn't depend. It is this or it's that, And I think it's really hard because quite often the answer is, it depends, Does the bus go at 8:00? Well, it depends. It's meant to, but if the weather's bad, if it breaks down, if someone struggled to get on at one particular stop and it took longer to get there or whatever, sometimes the answer isn't yes or no. Sometimes it depends. Sometimes an answer isn't right or wrong. It is just different. And someone else's experience is always going to be completely different to yours. I think a radio station here recently did a thing where they were saying, anyone who thinks they're completely different, ring in, tell us what your circumstances are that you think are so completely different, and we will find somebody else out there who has exactly the same circumstances going on. And I think they were actually talking at the time about obscure medical things to happen at the same time. But the truth of the matter is, we are all fundamentally human, and we are linked and connected in that way, and we are very similar. So we're not that different. But equally, the way we experience that is very different. And the way we interpret that and the way we cope with that is very, very different. And I think what the book was saying was, blame, it's kind of a waste of time, to be honest. It wastes your time. If you're sitting there busy blaming somebody else for the status of your life, you're not busy getting on with your life. You're missing out even more. And there's that really famous quote, and again, I'm not really sure who says it because I'm terrible with names, even of people I know, let's be honest. But it's something about, when you convert the number of seconds in a day, and so there's this many seconds, so it's like 38,000 something. If you had that much in money and someone stole $10, would you throw the rest of it away? Or would you, go, okay, well, I've lost $10 and move on? And you would move on. Obviously, you would move on. And yet people don't do that when something does happen in the day that is bad. But it's not just that 10 seconds. It's not even one day. For some things, people will just sit there and go, okay, well, that's my circumstances and I can't change them. And I think the thing that we forget to do now is actually adapt. And I think we don't adapt to our circumstances because we don't accept our circumstances. And I think people get confused with the word acceptance as well. Like, to accept something is not to like it. You don't have to like your circumstances to accept them. Okay. And I think if you accept your circumstances, then you can start looking for solutions, ways to improve it, ways to work within it. But also you can, just be, it's part of the gratitude process, I think. I think if you accept your situation, you're more grateful for it. And again, being grateful for where you're at doesn't mean that you don't want to improve or move or go further. It just means that you recognize that you are lucky and blessed with what you have. Because a lot of the time, external circumstances don't change. A lot of the time, everything that goes on is the same, but the way two people experience the same thing is different, not because of their personal experiences or whatever, but it might literally be different because of their thought process and their ability to move on or accept or adapt to whatever situation they're in. And I think that's what personal development's about. And I think that's what the book is sort of trying to show people and say to people. And he says it like so much more eloquently than I do. I highly recommend that you read. Like I say, he does swear quite a bit at the beginning, but his examples are really good. And it really does make you sort of stop and think and just go, well, hang on, what am I doing and why am I doing that? And is it really necessary and could I do it differently? Because I think really that process of not necessarily over analysing your behaviour, but certainly thinking about sort of general things and how you approach things on a general basis can really sort of change your happiness level and your effectiveness as well. It's like I said last week, if you're going into the gym trying to lose weight, you're probably going to get depressed. If you go into the gym trying to improve your fitness, you're going to see improvements really quite quickly and you're going to feel positive about that and it's going to make you want to continue. So same situation, completely different mindset, completely different focus. So he was talking about the fact as well in the book that you actually get to pick your values and you get to pick, sort of where you level things out. And he actually talked about two musicians, both were members of quite popular bands, got kicked out just before the band went really, really famous. Both approached that kick out completely different ways. One went very competitive, also became very successful, but still didn't really enjoy any of that success or appreciate it because he had decided that he was going to measure his own success on how well he did against the other band, and the other band did extremely well and he couldn't beat that. He still topped the charts, was considered influential, whatever else, but he couldn't beat that band and therefore he was never really satisfied or happy, whereas the other guy sort of went through a period of sadness and whatever, but then he accepted his situation, he moved on, he changed his value set, he did other things, and he was actually massively happy, probably more happy than some of the members of his original band who went on to be famous and didn't feel as satisfied with what they'd got. So yeah, I think mindset is a massive role, and it's all well and good saying, well, this happened to me or that, or I'm in this section of my life and that can't be helped. Well, it can't be helped where you're at now, no. But if you approach it differently and think about it differently, you can move out of it in maybe a quicker way or a happier way, or just a way that makes you not feel so, for want of a better word, depressed about it, really. I suppose that's kind of what my take on the book was anyway. I'm not sure if anyone on here has any additional takes. There's not been any comments that I've noticed that I was going to respond to. I'm not even sure if anyone else has actually read the book. If you have read the book, can you just comment yes or send me a love heart or something so that I know that you've read it. Hi, Debbie. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow, honey. We're talking about the Subtle Art of Not Giving a Mark's book. If you've read that, give me a love heart, show me that you've seen it, and maybe tell me what your takeaways were from that book. But I just thought it was interesting to talk about the difference between someone's fault and someone's responsibility, and the fact that even if stuff that happened to you isn't your fault, it is still your responsibility to take charge of it and react to it and move out of it. And that the second you take responsibility for where you're at in your life now, and you don't blame other people, that's the day your life changes. That's the day that you take charge and you go out there and you make a difference to what you've... Oh, I recommend you read it, Deb. If you've not read it, get out there, get it reading. Or do what I do and listen to it, because you never get time to read because, kids. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey. I like reading all the self-development books, and I love how they all overlap. Like even to the degree of the parenting books that I'm reading versus the self-development books, because a lot of self-development stuff and parenting stuff kind of links in together. I think when you have kids, you do learn a lot about yourself and about other people, and it's a really interesting learning curve, to be honest, and it's fascinating for me. But it is lovely to be able to see all those things. Like, we all preach the, kindness and respect, and we talk about having values and living to our values, but I'm not sure that everybody does live to their values. Like, we try, but sometimes I'm pretty sure there must be things that I say or do. Like today, there was a period this morning when the child was mucking about with my piano, and my piano was inherited from my gran, and I was a bit, please don't mess about with that, it's not a toy, You can't treat it like that. Can't be replaced, that kind of thing. Probably wasn't very kind to him. I wasn't very kind to him. Not in that moment, anyway. And I did pull myself back, which was nice because, I'm not looking for perfect, and that's the other thing. Remember, it's not about perfection. It's about progress. So every day that I don't just scream blue murder at him for the entire day, that's progress. Every day that when I am reacting badly to something, I pick myself up on it and I notice, that's awesome. When I can actually notice while I'm still doing it, that's even better, and eventually we'll get to the point where I stop myself before I do it, hopefully. But yeah, I had a moment today, but we're back to, I don't know when we stopped moving on from things, but I need to let that go. I need to say, okay, that wasn't great. We move on from that. Because if I don't move on from that, then I just come bogged down in it and I get worse and worse at it and I do it again and again and again. So this is where right at the beginning when I said, I really don't know what age it happens, but as a child, I remember being able to go to bed, wake up the next day and just start afresh and not have to convince myself that it was okay or convince myself that I'd forgiven someone or convince myself that I didn't need to think about that anymore. Just genuinely not think about it anymore. I had just moved on. And I really don't know what age I learned not to do that. But I am starting to wonder if maybe learning not to do that in today's society isn't necessarily a helpful thing. I remember when I was training to do management with revenue and customs in the UK, and I went to a thing, whatever, and we were having a conversation and they gave us an observed scenario test thing. And we came out of it and the feedback that they gave me was, you came up with solutions too quickly for stakeholders to have confidence in them. And I remember saying to them, but did my solutions suggest that because they said you responded so quickly, people think you didn't hear the issues. And I said, okay, but did my response show that I'd heard the issues? And they said, yes, no, it did. But no one would have confidence in your response because it was too quick. Now, there was a part of me that desperately wanted to say, it's not my fault if other people think slower than me. But the main thing was that it was really interesting to me that for them, the focus was not about finding a solution. The focus was about getting other people on board with the solution. And I thought that was really interesting because at the time I was like, but surely if you put the solution in place and it works, then everyone's on board because they see that it works. So what's the problem? But for them, they were like, oh, but you wouldn't be able to put it in place because you haven't got the stakeholders behind it. And I still don't really understand how if you can explain to someone why a solution would work, they wouldn't accept it just because you came back to them within a deadline or within a short period of time. But that was just the way the training was going and that's what they wanted and that's what they were looking for. If there's anyone out there who actually does management training and actually understands what that was about, I'm still kind of curious. I'd love to know exactly what that meant because it didn't really make sense to me at the time. And I wonder if maybe there was more to it or if they were just trying to be polite. I don't know. But that was the feedback that I got, that although my response made sense, it was clear, it showed an understanding of the question, because it was too quick, other people couldn't buy into it. And I thought that was really, really interesting. But we're back to people perceive things differently and people experience things differently. I'm always really I often feel like I've waited a long time before I speak, and I probably haven't waited at all. Or I feel like I'm pausing and other people don't see a pause at all. So I think perception of time is interesting as well. Like I don't perceive time the same as everybody else. But no, the biggest things for me, the takeaways for me from this book were, I think, blaming other people is a waste of your time because whose fault it is doesn't really matter. Like it doesn't matter how you got into a situation or what led you there, unless it's a lesson that you need to learn to not get into it again, which obviously you need to take that on board. But you don't need to take it on board at a point that delays you getting out of the situation that you're in, So, yeah, doesn't matter who's to blame. What matters is that you're in a situation. How are you going to get out of it? What are you going to do about it? And what are you going to do to take responsibility for your feelings, your actions, your future happiness? Because however you got into whatever you're in, you need to get out of it. And the interesting thing about that is I think that kind of weirdly, and I didn't originally mean to do this, but it kind of actually draws back to what we're doing now, because I think as a society, we're starting to do this a lot more. I think people sit there and say, oh, we've got all this plastic in the seas, it's terrible, and it's so-and-so's fault, and it's so-and-so. It doesn't matter whose fault it is. What matters is, as a society, is our responsibility to clean it up. We need to be coming up with solutions to clean it up. And there are people doing that now. And we're moving forward with that. And, there are programs out there and people trying to do things. We can sit there and we can say, isn't it a shame that the politicians and the government don't actually fix local problems? Because let's be honest, we put a lot of money into taxes and it does go into social reform and it does help and whatever. But the real help comes from charities and it comes from non-profit organisations. And the people on the ground actually making a difference are people who do not get funded by the government. Okay? Now, Scott Harris, love the man, right? Scott Harris said the other week, if you can be successful, you have a responsibility to be successful, because you can then make a difference in your local community, because you can contribute to the charities and the non-profits who are requiring volunteer funds to actually do the work on the ground that changes people's lives. And it does genuinely change their lives. But the government isn't going to be able to do that on that level. There's too much red tape. There's too many, whatever. There are things the government does that are great and that's all wonderful, but they're not it's not curing homelessness. It's not, helping with people on the streets or drug addiction reform and things like that. So you really need people out there doing soup kitchens, doing blankets for people. And they're not funded by the government. They're funded by entrepreneurs and private businesses who have spare cash, who can make donations, So if before, it used to be very much successful people were, I don't know, if you were successful in sports, it was okay. But if you were successful anywhere else, it was a bit, I don't know, Now it's very much, you should be successful because you need to share that success with others. You need to pass on that to others. Everybody has a responsibility to be the best version of themselves and to contribute as much as themselves as they can, because then you can change your community. You can change the people around you, and you can affect the lives of everybody in your local community. And let's be honest, if we want to make a difference, it's not about going out and curing world hunger next week. It's about changing the lives of the people in your neighbourhood, your neighbour, your friend, the person that you see on the street in your city, not, the people in Africa or the people in Fiji or the people. We need to help those people. They need help too. But if you want to make a difference, you can do it so much more effectively at a local level with the people around you that you can see. And to be able to contribute to that and make that difference. Like St Kilda Mums do the most amazing work, and they need volunteers and they need money and they need help, and if we can help them, we should. And then there's the soup kitchens, and then there's the people with the blankets, and then there's, the volunteer organisations that go around and just provide a friendly ear in hospitals for people to talk to. Like it's just, there's so many people out there doing so many amazing things for the community, and none of it's funded by the government. And if we sat around going, oh, well, the government should really do that. Well, they should, but they don't, And if you're busy saying, oh, that should happen or whatever, you're not going to actually accept the situation and do something about it, which is what the charities and the non-profits do. They say, do you know what? This is where we're at. These people still need help. Let's give them help, And that is nice and that's effective. And we're in a place now with society where eating has become a really funny thing. We don't eat to fuel our bodies anymore. We eat for pleasure. We eat as a social thing. We eat for all sorts of reasons. Very few of them have anything to do with nourishing our body. Like, I genuinely believed I was supposed to enjoy food. Like, that's what I thought I was meant to enjoy food. And because the food that I enjoyed was all really sweet and high in sugar, that's what I ate. Because I thought that's what it is. You go out for dinner with people, that's a fun thing. It was never fun for me because I didn't like any of the food on the menu, but I enjoyed the company. So I then trained myself to eat stuff that I didn't particularly like so that I could go out with people and have fun with people, because I thought that's what that was meant to be. Food is about nourishing your body. It's about fueling your body. It's about having your body function in the way it's supposed to. And sometimes foods were because they weren't naturally found regularly. you know. But the way society has moved on, and convenience now, and being able to get everything, and being so busy all the time, and wanting to be able to come home and just have dinner ready in 10 minutes and not having to think about it and plan it and whatever else, these are the lives we lead. We're all so busy, we're all so full, we're so rushing around from here to there and everywhere that we don't get the job done. And we all do. We all sit there and go, okay, so I've eaten really badly for like 6 months. Now I recognise I've got to do something about it. I'm going to go on this massive crash diet for 6 weeks, and hopefully that's going to help with my weight and stuff. But no one ever really approaches the nutrition and says, hang on, I didn't get any nutrition during that 6 months either. I didn't get any good food. You know, what we do, the supplements that we provide are fruits and veg in a capsule. You know, it's recognizing that today's society and today's culture and the way that we eat today, even if we eat well, doesn't give us the same kinds of nutrients as we used to get. Okay, because mass production on farms for all our fruit and veg, and the way it's stored and the way it's packed and the way it travels, there aren't the same number of nutrients in the fruit and veg anyway if you go to the supermarket than if you go and pick it off a tree. You know, then there's the way that we eat. Like, we don't eat the fruit and veg the same way that we used to. We used to eat it whole. We used to eat it, you know, over a period and whatever. Now we juice it, we turn it into sugar, we do all sorts of other things with it, you know. And I think our body has been slow to catch up with the society changes, unfortunately. And what our products do is recognise and accept a current situation and say, we want to move everybody to here, but we need to bridge the gap. We need to help people get there. People can't go from eating cake every week because there's a birthday party every single day these days, you know, to, oh, I only eat carrot sticks, because that's not, it's just not feasible, and it's not realistic, and it doesn't recognise how we live. And we need to recognise how we live. And I don't think it's necessarily bad, but I think it's about balance. We need to balance everything. We need to remember some of what we were doing when we were kids. Like, I still maintain that for a long time there, I was eating in a way that I would not allow my 7-year-old to eat. Like, if he'd come up to me at that time of night and gone, I want to eat this, I'd have gone, no, you can't do that. And yet I would quite happily stick it in my mouth, which is just madness. It's just absolute madness. So, yeah, our products, in a way, align with my values, because my values are the way to fix a problem, the starting point. Everyone always says this, the best way to fix anything, the starting point for anything is acceptance. If you can accept your current situation, then you can move forward. And I really hope that everyone out there who either hasn't read the book or didn't mind the ramblings of a madwoman, because honestly I feel like this kind of went a bit all over the place, just can get to a point of acceptance where they look at themselves and go, actually, you know what, I am responsible. I am responsible for making my career choices. I am responsible for choosing, in a way, to be annoyed by something or not, choosing to let it go, choosing to move forward. Choose. And I know we have a lot of choice these days, probably too much choice. I think choice is actually massively overwhelming. I know there was some research done that said if you give people more than 5 choices or something, they actually won't make a choice at all. They'll just shut down because it's too much choice. And I can kind of relate to that, because part of the reason that I didn't eat well is because I couldn't decide what to cook. Because there was just too many options. I didn't know what to do, which is why, in a way, I think a lot of us fall into that habit of eating the same thing over and over again, because it is actually easier if you know that on a Monday you eat this and on a Tuesday you eat that. Then you don't have to think about that all the time. And that choice of I could actually eat anything is taken away. And I think there is a lot of choices made in the day. And I think sometimes we get that sort of that brain freeze where you're just like, I've made so many decisions today that I couldn't possibly make another one, you know. And my decision that always got dropped was always what's for dinner, because I don't care about food, so it didn't interest me. So I just didn't do dinner, and that's not good. But yeah, too much choice is bad for us. But yeah, you need to accept where you're at and then make a choice about how you want to move forward. And I hope you can all do that. And I hope that you can all progress. Not get to where you're going, not reach perfection, progress and practice. And yeah, if anyone does know what age exactly we unlearn the moving on thing, I'm really curious about that, because that's something that's really sort of come into my head as I'm sure I used to do that much better than I do it now. It's like an unlearned behaviour that I've got to relearn. So I'm going to try and relearn it. But no, if you have not read The Subtle Art of Not Giving a... He is much more succinct, much more to the point. I've probably rambled more than he did in the entire book. And I've only read the first 4 chapters. So I'm pretty sure the book's worth reading, or at least listening to. But yeah, like I say, I've got it on Audible. My life is all over the place. And again, I accepted that, recognised that I wasn't reading anymore, and I found another way to do it. So now I listen to things. But yeah, accept where you're at, guys, and hopefully you're all good. Hi, Lavina. I was just turning off. Sorry. I hope you've read the book. If you've read the book, that would be awesome, because nobody else on here has read the book. Heather, have you read the book? No, I do. Okay. Well, I hope you're all going well, but me, I'm super tired. So it's it's nearly bedtime here, and it's been a long day. I just wanted to say, accept your situation and try your best. And I'll tell you what, if you're not eating enough fruit and veg, there are options. Let me know. And if you are eating lots of fruits and veg, but you're not eating the variety, because that's the other interesting thing, like variety is really key. I had no idea. And like I say, when I was eating well, I was eating the same thing over and over again. So I wasn't getting variety even when I was getting veg. And yeah, I think trying to get 18 veg into the kids is hard. So I love that I give my children like 30 different fruit and veg before breakfast, and then I give them 17 superfoods in the afternoon. Now, next week, I'm not actually going to be talking about my personal development. Next week, I'm probably going to talk a little bit about soy and some of the concerns people have about soy and how it affects hormones and things like that. But also, we have a complete powder that I give to the kids in the afternoon, which is absolutely awesome, but it contains soy. So I want to just talk a little bit about that. So anyone who wants to comment, ask questions, observe, we'll see you all next Monday. But Monday Madness happened again, and we'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.